Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And Fallout 4's post-apocalyptic world is indeed a very brutal one. A land littered with rugged raider gangs, cruel criminal bosses, and monstrous man-eating mutated creatures. It's not the first choice on my list of places to raise a family, but for those who are willing to set aside the trivial things like morals and ethics, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can be an interesting playground. While Bethesda certainly did their best to make most of the choices and quests that the game offers you somewhat morally gray, if not total good guy hero missions, Fallout 4 still presents a number of opportunities to get downright evil. So today I thought we'd explore some of the cooler, somewhat lesser talked about times where we the player get to let our dark side show. Kick back, pop open an ice cold bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum, and settle in as we dive into 5 more evil things you can do and may have missed in Fallout 4. Starting off, our journey begins not in the Commonwealth itself, but instead the island of Far Harbor. During the quest, Turning Back the Fog, Far Harbor's human settlers will request that the player visit a location known as Echo Lake Lumber, and clear it of feral ghouls so they might settle there. Apparently, not too long ago, Echo Lake was home to a once prosperous community. But with the rise of the fog, the residents were driven out. Now, they want to take it back. Or, more specifically, have you take it back for them. The quest initially comes across as pretty run-of-the-mill. You visit the site, murder a bunch of ghouls to death, and report back to Far Harbor to complete the mission and earn your reward. However, if after you've finished killing the ghouls at Lake Echo, you wait around for a bit and don't go to Far Harbor immediately, something very unexpected will happen. You'll be approached by a strange man named Malcolm, and as soon as he begins speaking, it'll become obvious that something's not right about him. He clearly sounds not at all sane, but Malcolm will explain that he thinks Lake Echo actually belongs to him. And, well, just take a listen to what he says.
Who are you?
My name? It's Malcolm. Malcolm, I own this land. Fog came and I didn't leave. Started breathing it in deep. Made peace with it.
I was sent to claim the lumber mill for Far Harbor.
This is my land. Keep the outsiders away. Or, let them come. Send them to me. Send all of them to me. And then I'll hunt them, salvage their gear, cut the meat, then toss the remains for the fog. What do you say? Got cabs. Make it worth your while.
This deranged man is a cannibal. Evidently, after the fog moved in and drove most people away, Malcolm must have stayed, and his exposure to the mist must have made him go mad. He was briefly chased away by all the ghouls you just killed, but now that they're gone, he's back. And he wants you to lure unsuspecting innocent settlers into coming to Lake Echo so he can eat them. Once he's made this proposition, the player will have a few options. A. Refuse to send him people to murder, but also agree to stay off of the land he thinks is his. B. Flat out reject his proposal and tell him you'll be taking over the land anyway, which will prompt him to turn hostile. Or C. Take his money and agree to send him people to eat, betraying Far Harbor. If you choose to go with that latter option and agree to his offer, not only will you become a few hundred caps richer, but the next time you visit the town of Far Harbor, some dialogue can occasionally be overheard by its citizens, where they mention settlers who were sent to Echo Lake are mysteriously going missing.
Heard anything from Small Bertha? The dock rats went to the lumber mill and haven't been heard from since.
Except, to us, these people's disappearances are no mystery. Next on our list, Diamond City Blues is probably among my favorite Fallout quests ever. It has so many different potential paths and branches that make it incredibly replayable, and your choices genuinely matter, making it a repeat favorite of mine for videos like this. But I digress. For those unaware, the mission centers around a dispute between a Diamond City resident named Paul Pembroke and a fellow named Henry Cook, who owns the Colonial Tap House. You see, Henry's been fooling around with Paul's wife, Darcy, and Paul will ask for your help in confronting him. When you do so, Mr. Cook will not only agree to lay off of Darcy, but also offer to make it up to you both. He claims to have knowledge of a major chem deal going on just outside of the city, where thousands of caps are being exchanged, and thousands of caps worth of chems are also moving around. Henry suggests that the three of you ambush the deal and take everything for yourselves, splitting the profits. Long story short, the trio of you will intercept the trade, a firefight will ensue, and assuming none of you die, as soon as the last triggerman is defeated, Henry will take a cut of the treasures and announce his plans to flee the Commonwealth. He knows the people behind this transaction will be looking for him now, and he'll leave you and Paul to divide whatever's left. And here's where you can be a real jerk, because Paul will shrug and ask if a 50-50 split of the remaining goods is cool to you. I mean, that is what's fair. But if you really want more, the sole survivor can pass a speech check to receive a more favorable 70-30 cut of the profits. Or you can straight up refuse to give Paul anything at all, completely ripping him off. Now, this is a big deal for Mr. Pembroke, as his share of the spoils was supposed to be Henry's way of repaying him for ruining his life. And if you press Paul in other dialogue options, he'll explain that he was excited to use the new money to start over with his wife, and finally just give his family the life he'd always wanted them to have. But if even after hearing Paul's sob story, you're still unmoved and want to keep all the profits for yourself, you can. So long as you pass the associated red speech check, that is. While this is already a rude thing to do, believe it or not, it won't be without consequence, as Paul's disposition towards the player will radically drop after the quest completes. And later on in the game, Henry, that dude who chose to flee the Commonwealth's daughter, will show up in Diamond City, asking where he is. And after a couple of days, she'll turn hostile towards the player, saying that Paul told her you killed her father, despite that being blatantly untrue.
I'm not convinced you've told me everything you know about Henry Cook's disappearance. Paul Pembroke tells me that you killed Henry Cook. I'm inclined to believe him.
Evidently, you ripping off Paul made him so resentful that when Henry's daughter showed up looking for him to get revenge, he lied and said you killed Henry, just to get her to attack you. Now, lucky us, we're the sole survivor, the destined savior of the wasteland. So fighting off Henry's little girl shouldn't prove too much of a challenge. And from here, perhaps you'll want to ask Paul a few questions of your own. Coming in at number 3, the social order in the pre-war theme park turned bandit-run metropolis of Nuka World is quite an odd one. It's ruled and defended by a powerful, constantly infighting coalition of raider gangs, who in turn depend on a subjugated class of slaves, nicknamed traders, to do all the actual labor. By and large, the traders are treated horribly by their raider overlords. They're bullied, overworked, routinely beaten, and often straight up murdered to death without cause. It's a bad gig they've got. The gangs are able to enforce their oppressive rule over the traders, mostly in thanks to a type of metal shock collar they force all of them to wear. Every single Nuka World slave has one of these wrapped around his or her neck. Well, every trader except one. Lauren Plummer is an elderly slave working at, and seemingly managing, Cappy's Cafe. Since it's again the raiders who actually run all of the businesses here, it's unclear if Lauren really owns her establishment. But no matter, Lauren is the only trader in the game that isn't wearing a collar. If you ask her why this is, Lauren will state that she's extremely proud of this fact, and will explain that she was in Nuka World long before the bandits took over, and was a respected figure back then. When the gangs eventually did come to power and demanded all of Nuka World citizens either put on slave collars or be exiled, Lauren simply refused to do either. And hilariously, the raiders all just sort of let her get away with it. If you ask how she's been able to maintain such a special privilege, she'll state that she thinks it's because she commands a healthy balance of both fear and respect in the eyes of the raiders.
Go on now. Take a guess why I ain't got a collar.
I assume it's because the gangs trust you not to run off.
That, and the fact I don't take shit from anyone. And here, it's my drinks and my rules. The answer is, because they got a healthy mix of fear and respect, that's why.
It's quite funny to imagine this feeble, elderly woman being able to dictate her own terms to a powerful army of what are basically post-apocalyptic barbarians. In fact, there's even dialogue that can be overheard, where Lauren relentlessly scolds some of her raider patrons for getting too rousy or messy, and the raiders won't dare talk back. It's pretty amazing. Alas, if the player is feeling like a truly despicable fellow, you can disrupt this adorable arrangement. As early on in the Nuka World DLC, you'll be appointed in charge of the entire theme park, and you can demand to the elderly Miss Plummer that she put a collar on. New boss, new rules. It's time she learn her place. Now, in order for your order to be followed, you'll have to pass a speech check. But assuming you do, Lauren will briefly curse the sole survivor before submitting to the order and putting on a new collar for the remainder of the game.
New boss, new rules. From now on, you wear your collar.
What? You serious? Well, ain't you a spoil sport? Fine. I'll put the damn thing on. I'll even serve you a drink. But I'll still be hoping you get a knife between the ribs from one of these raiders.
It should be noted, you don't get anything from this. There's no reward for bullying this poor old lady. In fact, you have to give her the collar to wear. So the only thing this does is torment some poor innocent soul. At least by backstabbing Paul or selling out the citizens of Far Harbor, you got a bunch of caps or chems. For this, you're rewarded with nothing. Unless, of course, you are a truly sick individual. In which case, then maybe you get some personal satisfaction or something. For fourth spot, the Institute side quest, Building a Better Crop, centers around the faction's efforts to preserve an experiment that's currently at risk of going horribly wrong. You see, the Bioscience Division has recently created a new type of seed that they wanted to test out in the Commonwealth. So, the Institute secretly replaced a successful farmer by the name of Roger Warwick, owner of the Warwick Homestead, with a synth, and gave that synth explicit instructions to begin cultivating the new seeds. Now, obviously, the real Roger Warwick had a family and a number of close associates that knew him well prior to his replacement. And those people are beginning to notice a change in his personality since his replacement. But, ironically, everyone seems to like the synth better. His wife and kids comment on how their family patriarch has become a lot kinder and more caring, losing what was once a major temper, and his workers all like their boss too. However, a man by the name of Bill Sutton has caught on. Bill is a particularly sad character. His wife and kids left him a while back, citing his alcoholism and abuse of them. And since then, he's been quite depressed and unstable. But he does know Roger's been replaced with an android, and is planning to destroy the robot. The Institute will send you in to intervene and save the day. After some brief investigation, the quest climaxes with Bill holding the synthetic Roger at gunpoint, threatening to kill him before most of the people living on the farm. Nobody but Bill believes Roger's a synth at this point, so they very much don't want him to be killed. However, Bill will not heed to their pleas. At this point, you'll either have to use your charisma to talk Mr. Sutton down and convince him he's just crazy, which he actually isn't, or simply defeat him in a firefight in order to complete the quest for the Institute. Well, those are the options the game immediately presents you with. But there is a third, particularly cruel one that the game doesn't really alert you to. Rather than take care of Bill, you can just at any point say, screw it, and shoot Mr. Warwick yourself. Doing so will invoke his family to turn hostile, though Bill will aid you, forcing the two of you to kill pretty much everybody at the stead, who, mind you, are pretty much all innocent people. Now, at this point you might be saying, okay, well it's kinda bad a lot of innocents died, but at least you saved Bill, right? Because he was, at the end of the day, correct in his assumption. Well, even if you go this route, Bill's not totally off the hook. Because after a few in-game days, you can come back to the homestead to find his body in a water tank. The consensus I've seen on Reddit and the wikis is that this is probably meant to imply that after the whole incident, Bill decided to commit suicide. Considering he was depressed being left by his family, it's not difficult to see why. In fact, on his corpse's inventory will be the goodbye note his wife left him. That's particularly scathing, and he evidently kept all this time. So, by choosing this path in the quest, quite literally everybody in the Warwick homestead dies. The synthetic Roger, his innocent family, and even Bill himself. I guess sometimes there are no winners after all. And finally, last on our list, speaking of the Institute, the side quest, A House Divided, is probably one of my favorites in the game. It begins shortly after Father names the player his next successor and heir. This is an especially big deal, as Father's currently dying of some major medical issues, and it's likely that very soon you'll be in charge of the entire Institute. But of course, not everyone in the Institute is happy with some new guy just walking in and being declared their next leader, and some will have taken to protest. Two scientists, Max Loken and Lawrence Higgs, will lock themselves up in the Institute Bioscience Division, barricading it shut and effectively cutting off the entire Institute's food supply, as that's where all the food's grown. On top of locking themselves in, they've also reprogrammed a number of synthetic androids to help defend their compound in case anyone tries to get inside. They will refuse to stand down until the player leaves the Institute and promises not to try and become the next leader. This, of course, is not an option for you, though. Instead, you'll have to either talk them down by passing a few speech checks, or hack a couple of terminals to gain access to the compound, and intimidate them to surrender after you've killed all their synths, to complete the mission and save the day. After it's all over and the rebels have given up, you even get to decide their punishment. It's pretty hilarious. But maybe you don't want to talk these people down or fight their androids. Well, there's a third option for those of you who are willing to get very morally dubious. Because inside one of the terminals you can find outside of the bioscience compound, there will be an option to open up the gorilla pen inside the compound. This will unleash two synthetic gorillas upon the protesters and the robotic army, and they will all be utterly massacred, condemning the members of this small uprising to a humiliating and brutal demise. But also further cementing your impending rule over the Institute as a leader who should not be messed with. And with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 more evil things you can do and may have missed in Fallout 4 Part 3. Thanks for watching, everybody. Which of these choices and/or options did you find to be the most despicable? Which was your favorite? And what morally dubious things have I yet to cover? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.